What do you do if your hobby is already lost? If it is in the hands of somebody at the highest level who actively despises it, like with Star Wars and Kathleen Kennedy? Or what if it's being turned into something it was never intended to be, like with Star Trek, its movies and STD, which are little more than action flicks and could in reality not be any further from the intentions of the universe and the show? What can you do? Is there anything you can do, or is it all just hopeless? Oh, that is a question I have been asked many times since I started the Gatekeeping series. In fact, it was pretty much the first question raised because, unfortunately, having your hobby already invaded is the norm rather than the exception. And as they say, hindsight is always 20/20. I've gone over this before, but we were all far, far too naive when all of this actually began happening almost a decade ago at this point, where we were told that our hobbies were sexist, they were racist, they were homophobic, they were exclusionary in one way or another, and horrified, we were like, what do you mean? They're not. Come on, you can come play too. And by validating their concerns for even the tiniest second, we opened the door, and that was all they needed to pry it open and stack demand upon demand upon demand. But hindsight, though it may be, it is a vital lesson, and those who do not learn from history is bound to repeat it. Because when asked, is there anything that can be done, the only thing I can answer is gatekeep. Gatekeep always. Because tragically, there is no silver bullet. There is no quick, short-term solution to salvaging our franchises. Kathleen Kennedy, again, is the perfect example of this. Everything the woman touches turns into liquid, explosive feces, and yet she is still employed. She is still running shows, and she is still being paid millions for ruining everything that comes within 100 yards of her. And it is because you do not get rid of these people or these problems overnight, or over a week, or over a year, hell, maybe not even a decade. But do not take this as a black pill or doomerism in any way, because here's the key. They didn't get there by accident. Kathleen Kennedy didn't spring forth from the dirt intent on destroying Star Wars. Games Workshop didn't start out condemning their own setting and claiming that the Imperium was driven solely by hatred, rather than a simple need to survive and exist in an exceptionally hostile galaxy. None of this happened in a vacuum. This has been an incredibly long process for the invaders, the leeches, and it is still ongoing. We may have lost a battle, but we have not lost the war. It is, though, imperative to understand that, again, this is a long-term process. Like I talked about in the To Stay or Build Our Own video, nothing's gonna happen quickly here. And that is why, in many ways, I do encourage people to see if maybe they've got what it takes to begin creating their own universes, to begin coming up with ideas for settings or rule sets and seeing how far they can possibly take it. Because we do need alternatives whilst the battle rages for our other fandoms. Because, as I cannot reiterate often enough, this is a long battle, which is why it is imperative to not lose heart. You need to understand the time scale we're looking here, and yet not lose hope, which is easier said than done. Bear you in mind, the wokists have been at this for decades. The fact that we have managed to turn the tide to the degree we already have over the course of just a few short years of realizing what's going on is incredible. The fact that a wokist is now an insult, one that even they themselves recognized, is incredible. Some of you may even have been around for long enough to remember when they were trying to make SJW, social justice warrior, into a positive term. Didn't work out particularly well. But that's not to say that they're incompetent, far from it. Again, they have managed to infiltrate our hobbies remarkably effectively and worm their ways up into positions of power. Now, obviously, one of the ways to fight back would simply be to apply for positions within these companies. I know several people who are doing just that, but bearing in mind, if you're going to try this, you need to understand that you will be persecuted for your beliefs. You need to keep your mouth shut for however long it takes to get into a position where you actually have the position and power to speak your mind. And it can take a very, very long time again. Another way, of course, would be to get into the fandom directly. This is something that I, for example, am already doing. I realized quite early on in Warhammer that shit was going to happen sooner or later. The warning signs were there, the writing was on the wall, it was happening everywhere else. There was no way that Warhammer was going to be spared. You can hear me talking about this 5 years ago, mentioning that when they come for Warhammer, it is going to be sudden. We are barely even going to know what the hell hit us, and all we can do is try to prepare and lay the groundwork for it. And as far as I know, I am probably one of the only people of size within the 40k community who is actually now actively fighting back against this. And to further illustrate the point that you will be persecuted, again, look at me. I have earned no small number of enemies over the years, and I can pretty much guarantee you that if I'd simply just kept my mouth shut and toed the line or toned down the nature of my content like certain others, I probably would have been a much larger YouTube channel. But I would also have actively contributed to the destruction of my favorite franchise. However, again, if you are trying the infiltration route, that is your only option, to shut up, toe the party line, and work your way up the ladder slowly but surely. This is something you shouldn't even consider until you are very dedicated to this as a job and as a career first and foremost, and second, tertiary, far down the line comes the idea of saving the hobby. No one should get a job just to try and fix what somebody else messed up. That is one of our weaknesses, incidentally, as well, because our opposition, they have their greater good, and for them, it is expressly political. A way we can demonstrate this is by looking at another favoured way of theirs to co-opt and infiltrate the hobby, by pretending to be the hobby. Many of you have no doubt seen the recent controversy with Razor Fist being blocked by what at first seemed to be rather official-looking accounts. The Art of Battletech and MechWarrior, and the Battletech Community. Those both sound very, very authoritative, don't they? They're tags to Battletech.com or Art of Battletech. They sound like they're the actual accounts of the setting, don't they? They're posting the actual art of the setting, willy-nilly. They're claiming to be representatives of Battletech and of the community, and yet in reality these are nothing more than a couple of politically motivated fan, quote-unquote, leech, more correctly, accounts, using the setting's name, using its art, contributing nothing of their own whatsoever to gain a following, and then when they believe they've got enough of a voice in the community, they'll start putting in a little bit of politics here and there. The same tactics they used so effectively a decade ago. Oh, we just want inclusion. Oh, we just want diversity. All of the positive sounding words that the normies don't understand, or, well, a lot more of the normies are starting to get it now, which is reflected in the pretty darn pathetic following of these pretend official accounts. And this is something you and everyone else can do, making Twitter accounts claiming to be representative of this somehow. Now, we don't tend to do it because it's a lie. It's false. It is inherently misleading, incorrect, and stinks of subterfuge, doesn't it? To pretend to give yourself the Twitter name The Art of Warhammer, and then just start recycling Warhammer art, posting it as if you are some kind of official account, pretending to really just care about a few minor things. Oh, just a small political smidge there, just a small one over there, until you've built yourself up enough clout to start becoming openly political, to the point where you can start weaponizing the masses with platitudes and vague sounding slogans to try and push your agenda again. It is almost inherently scummy. And yet, it is effective. Pretending to be an authority figure can surprisingly often be almost as effective as actually being one. Now, of course, this too is a thing that requires a lot more in the way of dedication, of time and effort on behalf of the person doing it. If you don't want to go quite that far, another option is simply to become a bit more of an active participant in the community, and a vociferous participant as well. Posting on the Reddits, posting on the Twitters, posting on the company's official accounts, getting on their forums, and pushing back whenever you see the wokist agenda begin to manifest. Now, again, the issue here is we are dealing with an opposition that know all too well the power of simply just silencing the opposition. And so you're gonna get banned. Undoubtedly. You're gonna get banned, you're gonna get removed. Make another account. Do it again. Repeat ad infinitum. Eventually, the pressure will begin to mount, as it did when the wokists did it to us. And there are already communities that understand this and are sympathetic. I've brought up our Battletech in the past, for example, as just one of these communities. When me and Kyle started posting our Battletech reimagined art there, no mention of politics, because we simply just want to provide something to this community that we are heading into, rather than the art of Battletech merely regurgitating art. We are creating custom art pieces for this fandom. And immediately the communists moved in. They created brand new accounts on our Battletech and started yipper-yappering along, pretending to be concerned. Oh, you know, I support this project, but you're friends with Arch, don't you know he's problematic? Pretending to be in good faith every step of the way. The moderators were having none of it. Absolutely none. And they banned them and removed them as necessary and humiliated them in front of everyone else by pointing out exactly where they tended to be posting. And there is another tactic as well. Getting into the communities, playing nice, and that is important too. Play by the terms of service. Malicious compliance is going to get you a lot further than open disobedience. Carefully skirting the rules might just see you avoid the ban hammer of those who would otherwise suppress you. Again, like I told about with weaponized hypocrisy, where I posted gatekeeping videos saying that they will try to gatekeep us, and immediately the reaction was ban this, remove this, and the argument was simply made, hold on, you're proving Arch right, aren't you? Which suddenly, they couldn't just ban it anymore. Malicious compliance. Very effective tool when properly applied. But getting into the moderators, is even better. If you can play by the rules, abide by the terms of service, become a valued member of the community, playing your hands correctly, maybe you can get on the mod team, get some real power and influence. Again, continuing to play by the rules until you might eventually be in a position to do something a bit more drastic. At the very least, you can make the banhammer a little softer. Get people to think twice before simply yeeting the opposition. That alone will achieve quite a lot, and, as I am sure many of you are aware, it is exactly what the leeches did to us. The reason why, see, that's the thing. I am not banned from the R40k lore Reddit, as in me personally. The mention of my name is banned. That is where the meme comes from, he who must not be named. Because here's the interesting thing, when people brought up my videos, people attacked the person posting it and attacked me with the usual slurs and accusations and insults, etc. Every time they kept attacking people, and they eventually got into the moderation team to the point where the moderators decided, okay, instead of enforcing the terms of service, instead of kicking the people who are causing the trouble, who are stirring shit up and beginning drama, we are going to ban the topic instead, giving the people who stirred up the shit everything they wanted. Besides these more active measures, I suppose you could call them, there are the more passive ways of doing your part as well. Most importantly, simply just not consuming the new media. This goes for Warhammer, for Star Wars, for Star Trek, for every single setting, for Pathfinder, Dungeons & Dragons, etc. If something new comes out and it has a clear wokeist bend, simply just ignore it, or find it on some Russian website somewhere, perhaps, at a steep discount, shall we say. That is a valid alternative, most assuredly. In the case of Warhammer, we have a particularly obvious and simple target in the form of Warhammer Plus, a project that Games Workshop has put a lot of money, time, and effort into as a major part of their aim to get rid of the old fan base and get a new one integrated into their money-making machine. Sadly, such an obvious target is quite rare, and one of such complete and utter garbage quality even rarer. It is also important to remember, though, that boycotting one show or one product ain't gonna do it. This is something that you need to think about actively and act on continuously. As we've talked about with websites like Kotaku, for example. The reason why such a site is still around is outside investment. They're able to convince various funds and investors that they are totally worth their money and they will totally begin paying off eventually. Or alternatively, they simply convince them that they are pushing the correct political ideology, and the money then begins to flow. This is another problem that we as consumers have very little control over in the modern day market. The simple fact is that even if every single fan of a franchise boycotted in absoluteness a product, as long as the company is still getting investor money, it can continue to run essentially indefinitely. Now, of course, there is a breaking point, and in this case, it is the larger political breaking point. Investing in something for political reasons is done primarily because either A, the investor is genuinely of the opinion that this is the best use of their money, an actual ideologue, in which case there is no changing their mind. You're not going to convince a zealot that they're wrong in their zealotry. It ain't gonna happen. Or alternatively, they are doing this to look good. They're donating to the correct causes so that they can be perceived as the correct kind of rich person. In these cases, and this is the majority of the investors as well, all you need to do is make it blindingly obvious that this is no longer good. It's no longer positive. It is no longer something that is going to earn them head pats and kind platitudes. And this is where the necessity for politics does rear its ugly head. Ideally, none of us should be talking about anything to do with politics whatsoever when it comes to gatekeeping. We should simply just say, no, only law discussions here, move on. But it's not that easy. In the position we are in now, it is absolutely necessary to adopt, at least to some degree, a political stance against this. Because you cannot argue against someone who simply says, oh, I just want positive thing. I just want good thing. Diversity, inclusion. I just want the hobby to be for everyone, without being able to point out the hypocrisies in their wishes, the hypocrisies in their politics, and how they keep making their hobby smaller and smaller and less inclusive. This is a political argument that must be made. There, again, is another way to perhaps make a difference. Making the political argument as well, though bear in mind, on most Reddits, etc., this is already banned. The problem is, it is usually only actually enforced one way, since championing diversity and inclusion is absolutely not political, now is it? There's another thing you could do as well, simply pointing out that when somebody is asking for these things, no, these are, in fact, political. They are arguments made only by one side of the spectrum, and they always lead to the exclusion of the other side. You can ask them, what do they mean by inclusion? When they say, oh, just including everyone. Okay, well, we don't already exclude anyone, so what do you really mean? Oh, it's excluding those that they consider to be exclusionary, isn't it? Yes. It would be nice to eventually arrive back at a time when no political talk is necessary whatsoever. But we're not there yet, and we're not going to be for a while either. So, there you are, a handful of things that can be done, even if your setting is actually already under the control of the leeches. It is gatekeeping, simple as. You must gatekeep, you have to continue gatekeeping, even if you don't see the immediate point in it. It does have a long-term effect, and it does help. Until next time, I've been Arch, thank you all very much for listening, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.